to another video. Today we're looking through r/TraumatizeThemBack. It's a subreddit of people getting back at those who are a little bit of dicks or just try to traumatize them. I whispered in her ear. I ended up pregnant at 17 and had just graduated from high school. My dad said if I didn't have an abortion, I couldn't live at home, so I had the abortion, even though I didn't want to. That Christmas, we went to my cousin's house and her baby was so cute and charming. My mum exclaimed how she couldn't wait to be a grandma. I whispered in her ear, "You had your chance." Editing to say, I forgave them long ago for my own peace of heart. Sometimes it still bothers me, but way less than when it happened. Yeah, I think everyone can tell that that's not the best scenario, having to get forced to do something like that. It's completely okay if that's your choice, but no one should be forced into a situation like that. Whether or not your mum insisted or just stood by and watched it happen, I guess that's some revenge. Cancer Kid versus the Ass Prince. When I was in 9th grade, I almost died from leukemia. I had to drop out of school for a few months while I underwent intensive chemotherapy and radiation. My school had just gotten a very hard-nosed assistant principal who was super strict and loved bellowing at students for even the tiniest infraction. By the time my white blood cell count had started to rebound after being wiped out, I had lost all of my hair. Instead of a wig, which my family couldn't afford anyway, I chose to wear baseball caps to cover my bald scalp. I was so severely underweight from the malnutrition while cancer destroyed my gut flora for 3 months before I was diagnosed, and then when chemo finally destroyed it and radiation destroyed my If you read my other post though, fortunately I gained all that weight back and then some. So I looked a bit like a scrawny boy from behind. But my boobs were pretty big before I got sick, so they were still pretty prominent. While I was about to enter the cafeteria with my friends for lunch, I heard the ass prince, what we call them, yell across the lobby, "Excuse me, young man. Young man. Young man. Young man, stop right there." I realized he was talking to me, and stopped while he caught up to us. "Take that hat off this instant. Wearing a hat is a violation of school dress code." I took it off slowly and turned around so he could see that not only was I a girl, but I had no eyebrows or eyelashes in addition to being bald. The look of panic on his face was delicious, but I wasn't done yet. "I'm sorry for wearing a hat at school, sir. It's just I'm so embarrassed because I lost all my hair to radiation therapy. I didn't mean to make you so angry." He said, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. You're the girl with cancer." I nodded sadly, playing it up. He apologized profusely. From that point until I graduated, I had the guy wrapped around my finger, thanks to him feeling guilty for yelling at the cancer kid. As someone who didn't go to uniform schools or anything, I never quite got the super strict dress codes. So what if someone wears a hat? What damage is a hat going to do? They might keep the sun out of their eyes, or if they're inside, it's just a hat. I wore hats to school. I can see why he's named the aspirants. You need to get married. Many years ago, I was visiting family and happened to be speaking on speakerphone with my dad's sister. She's fully of the southern Louisiana belief that a woman's sole purpose is to get married as young as possible and have babies. While on this call, I'd mentioned I was going back to school for my master's degree. Aunt on the phone said, "You need to go to find a husband school." Everyone around me, my mum, stepdad, mum's sister, aunt on the phone, laughed so hard at what she said and thought it was so funny, until I immediately said, "I don't need to get married to get what I need from a man." The silence and shocked Pikachu faces were so priceless and worth it. People are allowed to live their life the way they want to, and if that's not up for you, that's cool. How to take down a conspiracy theorist. Done by my grandmother. This was of my grandmother's doing when I was a kid. She had never been shy in mentioning that she has an autistic grandchild. She has always been pro-vaccine and has donated for years to different organizations that help get vaccines to children in need. Her brother had died from meningitis when they were children. It was one Saturday when her church was having a craft fair that was going to be benefiting Doctors Without Borders. There was one woman who knew my grandmother was horrified that a pro-vaccine group was going to be receiving money. We will call her Lillian. She goes to my grandmother, "Rose, you don't want to support this. You know vaccines cause your granddaughter's autism?" My grandmother sent back, "My brother died from meningitis when he was 7, years before the vaccine came out. Even if my granddaughter's autism was caused by vaccines, I would rather that she be autistic versus her dying or becoming prematurely disabled from a preventable disease." Everyone went silent. It wasn't long after that my grandmother said Lillian and her family left the church. Yeah, I mean, good on your grandmother. She has she has the right point of view. I'm just gonna say that we probably don't know better than scientists. They study for a very long time to learn all the stuff that's needed to do this, and why should we think that we know better than them? I don't think I'm better than a professional footballer who played their whole life, you know? I don't know why people don't trust those people that they just think that they're bought and do whatever a company says, but I don't think so. If they really killed everyone or gave everyone autism, everyone would be autistic. Bet you felt like an ass, huh, sir? Now, before we begin, I would like to state that this was told secondhand to me by my mother, and I've gotten full permission to tell this. Mum headed to the grocery store today, and it was packed, and some things weren't available. Pre-Christmas shopping, am I right? One of our regular weekly items that we get is a gallon jug of distilled water. They only had the giant jugs that had taps attached, so she got one of those. Mum had been talking with either one of her employees or another shopper about it, and they mentioned using it for their coffee. Mum then told them that she gives it to the cat. This random dude that was walking by remarks, "Give them tap water, it won't hurt them." Mum, "Actually, it will hurt him. He's got bladder stones, so it's either distilled water or a $2,000 surgery." Dude walked off without a word. Shut up if it's not about you, you know? Or you'll get humbled like that because you're stupid and you don't know anything about the situation. Dumbass. The time I accidentally traumatized my substitute teacher. Characters in this tale: Teacher 1, Teacher 2, Mrs. Screaming, the sub, me. So in primary school, I was in a class of combined grades. So it was grades 6 to 7 combined, and we had 2 teachers. They were the nicest teachers, super sweet. Now this particular substitute teacher, Mrs. Screaming, was known throughout the school to be very loud and very aggressive. At one point, my teachers could hear her screaming at a student clear across the playground courtyard, to the point they called her classroom and asked her to quiet down because it was distracting our class. This woman sent over the student she was screaming at to apologize for making her have to scream so loud. Now, I was a really good kid, never got in trouble or did anything wrong, so my teachers didn't expect me to prank them. I got a piece of silicone glue that looked exactly like a piece of chalk and put it with the rest of the chalk at one end of the classroom. It was divided into like 2 classrooms with blackboards at each end. Now, I must have been away when it fooled teacher number 1, but she assumed it was teacher number 2 pranking her, so she put it with the chalk of teacher 2's blackboard to get her back. Only teacher 2 ended up getting sick, and so we needed a sub. Guess who was our sub? Mrs. Screaming. Now, I don't know who pooped in Mrs. Screaming's cornflakes that morning, but she was already in a bad mood. So she's writing on the blackboard with such aggressiveness, I swear you could see smoke coming out of the end of the chalk. Naturally, chalk can't withstand this force of this angry woman and snaps. She tosses it aside and picks up the next piece of conveniently placed chalk and goes to keep brutalizing the chalkboard. It bends. She looks at it like someone would look at the sky if it turned green. The absolute bafflement on her face, turns to look at us, who are all stifling laughs, when I'm sliding down in my chair trying to be invisible, as I did not want to ruin my perfect record of never getting in trouble. She looks back at the chalk for a few more seconds before she slowly turns back and puts it aside, grabs another piece of chalk, then keeps writing, but much slower and calmer, like she is questioning her entire life experience with what is real and what isn't. She was silent for the rest of the day. I mean, she really questioned the world she lived in, trying to understand if the laws of physics were still what she thought they were. That's aside from the fact of like, why are you angry all the time? You can't just turn up to a class and be angry. It's like turning up to your friend's house and being mad just because random stuff happened that had nothing to do with them. It's rude as hell. Not pregnant, just fat. I recall literally just walking by a building in downtown Sacramento, California, years ago, where several different businesses had their offices. Fate would have it that the building was right next to a Planned Parenthood. Not attached, just close. And that day, a group of protesters had stationed themselves outside with their usual vitriol, screaming, waving signs, and calling everyone who walked past a murderer. Something to know, I have always carried extra weight around the middle, and I guess in their warped mind, I looked far enough along to make me a particularly juicy target. They screamed at me about my baby, yelling at me that I was a monster, a murderer, that my baby could survive if I just gave it a chance. First, I tried to ignore them, but something in me just snapped. Maybe it was the stress of the day, maybe the audacity of their cruelty, or maybe just the absurdity of being called a murderer for existing while fat. So I stopped in my tracks, tears welling up in my eyes, not real ones, but damn convincing nonetheless, and turned around. How dare you, I wailed, clutching at my stomach as if I were in pain. How dare you to stand and call me a murderer when all I wanted was my baby. I loved my baby, but my baby died. So now they need to empty my uterus before I die too. That group fell silent. Slowly, not the sudden, satisfying snap of jaws one might hope for, but still, they shut up. Their screaming righteousness faltered, stumbling over stammered apologies, eyes refusing to meet my faux tearful ones, I could almost see the guilt start to cone over some of them. I mean, some were still righteously fanatic. Can't traumatize them all, I guess. Lol. Their signs sagging with the recognition of the monstrous spectacle they'd made of themselves. And with one last sniff for added flair, I strode through the building, past them all, to leave them stepped in shame. The kicker? I wasn't remotely pregnant. My oldest was over 18. I was on my way to meet my attorney about something completely unrelated to children and very boring business. I'd had a tubal ligation years before, so the only baby they were screaming about was a phantom. I wasn't pregnant, just fat, but the kind people at Planned Parenthood, when I explained why I was in there instead of my attorney next door, let me sneak out the back, lol. Sometimes I wonder if they ever tell that story to each other, the tragic, grieving mother they harassed into tears. I hope it haunts them. I mean, probably not, but I enjoy the thought. Good on you, those people suck ass. They're terrible human beings. A waste of life. And I'm glad that you pranked them like that, because they suck. No, I genuinely don't remember. I'm usually a lurker here, but I thought this was funny enough to share. Due to various bad things that happened in my life, I have a lot of mental issues, including a dissociative order, which means that I literally don't remember anything except the base facts of my life: name, family, address, etc. For this reason, I went to a therapy high school for my senior year, which ended up a disaster, but that's another story. It was a pretty small place, and every student at one point gets called to the office to fill out information to apply for college. When I was there, I was struggling with some of the questions, and the conversation went something like this. Office lady, now fill out whether you have or have not taken the SAT. For non-American readers, it's a pretty important pre-college exam. Me. But I don't know the answer. I forget. Office lady, oh, how could you possibly forget if you've taken the SAT? Me, confused. I have a memory disorder. Office lady. She got real quiet after that and let me fill out the information on my own time. Maybe not the most exciting story, but I still laugh at it sometimes. For an employee at a mental health high school, you'd think she'd understand that some people have genuine issues with memory. But yeah, I'm not sure if she understood where she was applying. Don't get me wrong, you don't want these people in a regular high school either. People have issues, or people at a mental health high school probably have some mental health issues, maybe? Maybe? When are you going to have kids? Mine is a short yet sweet story that happened multiple times to multiple people, but it is very fitting for the sub. No need to feel sorry for me, as doctors finally figured it out and I am currently holding my almost 5-month-old. To paint the picture, my husband and I started trying for a baby and had lots of struggles along the way. We had a chemical miscarriage on our own, and then started working with a clinic and had 4 more very traumatic miscarriages over the next 3 years. To say I felt like I was in my villain origin story is an understatement. I was depressed as hell and didn't care who knew it. For some reason, people love to bring up the topic of kids and ask when my husband and I were going to have any. The response was always, when we stop having miscarriages. Thanks for asking. The look on their faces every single time just gave me a glimmer of joy in our moment of absolute darkness. Yeah, it's a very... I don't think anyone enjoys receiving those questions. Like, whether it's someone who's having the miscarriages, someone who's 22, single, has no partner to speak of, and isn't even like wanting a child yet. I don't think anyone appreciates these questions, so I don't know why people keep asking them. Just shut up. They'll probably have a kid when they have a kid. Drunk creep traumatizes me and my fiance. Get double traumatized back. I decided to share this story inspired by similar tales compiled by one Swedish YouTuber telling me I smell great. Enjoy. My fiance and I, both 25M from the UK, went for a holiday in South Spain 2 years ago. One night, we decided to go clubbing in Torremolinos, since it's got a large gay clubbing district. We're sat at the outside tables of this bar that caters mostly to men slightly older than us. While we're having a conversation with our friend and a couple of randoms we met at the table, I suddenly felt a weird tickling sensation in the back of my hair. I thought it was some kind of bug or something, and then I turned back and see there's this older creepy guy at the table behind us, gently fondling my hair, while quietly making weird cutesy noises like aw, ooh, when petting your cat. He immediately pulls his hand back, does something almost resembling a little giggle, and turns away. Maybe it was the drinks we've already had or the absurdity of the situation, but we initially found it to be a bit funny and harmless. This was not the end of it, though. For context, both my fiancé and I are, let's say, relatively conventionally attractive. We have fabulous hair. I've got mid-length brown curls, think Jon Snow, while my fiancé has long blonde hair and facial hair, Thor or Sam Ryder lookalike. A few minutes pass, and my fiance suddenly turns around, having the same thing happen to him. The offender is definitely drunk, but that is obviously not an excuse. We tell him to stop doing that. He giggles like a kid in primary school flirting with a girl by pulling her hair and turns around. A couple more minutes pass, and it happens again. We push his hand away and ask him to stop, more harshly this time. Now at this point, we're ready to move to a different club, so we just leave. Maybe an hour later, at a different club, we've already forgot about that weirdo, when, in the outside smoking area, we both feel our heads getting caressed. We turn around and see the same guy that we thought we escaped from, doing his ultimate move, a two-hand double-head creep hairstroke combo. My fiance and I lock eyes for a second, and with 0% words but 100% understanding, we then proceed to aggressively stroke his mostly bald head, petting it like it's the cutest puppy on this godforsaken planet, making all sorts of cute and moaning noises. He is completely stunned and overwhelmed at the taste of his own medicine. Visibly uncomfortable, he basically sprints away, not to be seen again that night. We just laugh about this every now and then, but I can imagine how the same interaction could be quite scary if we were a couple of girls. Stay safe when you're out, friends. Yeah, I mean, screw around and find out. It's creepy whether you do it to a boy, a girl, anyone in between, or outside. It's creepy, don't ever do it, and that person is a horrible person. But I'm glad that you guys were able to get through it and just do a little traumatize them back. How did you lose the weight? I have a binge eating disorder. I've been stable for over a decade now, and that is a huge achievement. I'm still overweight. I do not own a scale and only weigh myself at the doctor's office. Talking about weight loss or dieting is a trigger for me. I've learned to protect myself enough that I no longer have to leave the room when dieting talk comes up, but I refuse to engage in it myself. I'm a teacher, so we have a 2-month period where we don't see coworkers. One year I came back to school, and one of my coworkers became obsessed with the idea that I had lost weight. I might have. I don't know. I don't own a scale, and it certainly wasn't enough that I needed to buy new clothes. My coworker started asking me daily during the first week back how much weight I had lost. I'd just shrug and say, I don't own a scale. She'd laugh like this was the most ridiculous concept. She stopped asking daily, but she was still asking pretty regularly for the first month back. I was getting so tired of having to field this question. I started going out of my way to ignore her, but we were in the same department, so when she escalated her questioning and said, how did you lose the weight? I responded with, I got treatment for my eating disorder. That was the last time she brought my weight up. Weight seems to be quite a fascinating topic for people. You know, like, there are people out there who say, like, you know, they've run businesses, they've done all this thing. Maybe like Adele, who's won Grammys. But people only really seem to care once you do weight loss, or once you, like, bulk up. You can do absolutely anything, but the biggest achievement is always weight loss. I don't know if it's a trigger for everyone, but it's not a conversation that a lot of people want to have. Unless maybe they've, like, really obviously gone from, like, a very skinny person to, like, very jacked, because you know that they've been spending time in the gym. That doesn't really just happen. And so probably that person is up for a conversation. But if you think someone's dropped maybe like 20 pounds or something, like, if they want to bring it up, that's cool. But you don't need to be fixated on their weight. I'm not even sure why you noticed. What does your dad think? This one belongs to my cousin, and it's gold. A few years ago, when she was still in high school, she had a group of friends outside her class she used to hang out with. They would make plans to go on trips or go to parties, and obviously, as teenagers, the what do your parents think question would come up sometimes. Now, not all of my cousin's friends knew that her dad had died when she was 9. Very, truly traumatizing to the whole family, but life goes on. She was the least affected though, because she was the youngest and didn't really feel his absence growing up, especially since everyone rallied to make sure that her and her brother felt loved and taken care of. So she was really chill about it. Well, at one point, her and her friends started planning to go on a trip to a cabin in the mountains. Some of them start complaining that they don't think their parents will let them go or give them the money for it. My cousin is very chill about it though, like, oh, my mum won't have an issue, I can go. Her friends get kind of bristly at this since she always does whatever she wants and her mum is chill. So one guy says, oh yeah? Well, what about your dad? Bet he won't be so chill about it. And my cousin, legend that she is, without missing a beat says, I don't know, he died like 10 years ago. Silence. Horrified silence. The guy who asked her about her dad tries to apologize and asks if she is okay, and she just responds, yeah, I'm fine. It's not like I know him or anything. Horrified silence continues. Eventually they move on and change the topic, but my cousin said the guy who mentioned her dad never made eye contact with her again until the group disbanded when they went to college shortly after. Yeah, I mean, her dad seems chill, pretty young. ice cold, you'd say. It's kind of one of those things that as soon as you say something like that, something real or like traumatize them backy, people don't know what to say anymore. You know, like if you don't have a parent around, you're like, well, I don't think they care because I don't see them or don't know them or whatever they did. People just go silent. But they're very quick to ask the question beforehand. They're just not prepared for the answer. Alright, well, I think that's enough trauma for today. So, like the video, subscribe, watch another one, do all that cool stuff, and we'll see you in a future video.